Hey everyone, Pink Apple again, and we have just become the first player in North America to get over 3,000 points on the leaderboard. Today, I'm going to be rating all of the cards within the Grandmaster Hlaalu deck, giving you a high rank overview of what cards you should be taking and what's best to avoid. Starting out our S tier this time around, we have Currency Exchange. So Currency Exchange is completely insane, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of the first few cards to receive some balance adjustments. The gold generation on this card is almost unrivaled, and on the turns you're playing Currency Exchange, you can essentially afford anything you want to buy. As for the Tavern removal, if you watch my Sigil deck tier list, I explained how the high gold gains on Prophecy synergize so nicely with the Tavern removal that's already built into that card. This concept is going to apply even more so with Currency Exchange. You get to fish for whatever sort of cards you need, and you don't have to worry about handing powerful cards over to your opponent just because you can't avoid them. All of this, and I haven't even touched on the combo ability yet. Comboing Currency Exchange with just one card allows for the use of an extra patron power. Just by having this card in your deck, you're exerting so much patron pressure on the opponent, they'll likely have to use some patron power suboptimally just to ensure that you're not threatening a patron victory on every passing turn. This becomes even more powerful once you realize that every time you play the card, you have two chances for Tithe to show up on the board. And the Tithe effect stacks with Currency Exchange, effectively letting you use 3 different patron powers in just one turn. Even if you're not going for a full-out patron victory, the amount of prestige you can generate late game with double patron turns is so hard to keep up with. This is usually going to be accomplished by using both the Crow power alongside sacrificing an expensive card, but double sacrificing is also very powerful. Currency Exchange is without a doubt worthy of an S tier ranking, and this card is probably responsible for more of my wins than any other card in the entire game. There's only one card strong enough to join Currency Exchange in our S tier today, and that card is Luxury Exports. Luxury Exports may not be as versatile as Currency Exchange, but when it comes to power level, it's right up there. Luxury Exports is the only card in the game that gives more gold than it costs to buy, and that's as overpowered as it sounds. Turn 1 Luxury Exports is one of the strongest openers in Tales of Tribute, and since this card is so cheap to pick up, afterwards you can use the Treasury power still, or even buy another card. In the early game, taking another card over Luxury Exports is playing with fire. Cards like Toll of Flesh or Siege Volley may be really appealing turn 1 pickups, but you'll soon find your opponent being able to afford rallies and currency exchanges as soon as Luxury Exploit makes it into their hands. Overall, this is an insanely powerful card for only costing 2 gold, and honestly, I would rather my opponent start with Armory turn 1 than pick up Luxury Exploits alongside something like Scrying Globe. At this point, I do have one clarification I would like to make before continuing the tier list. The rankings I give on my tier list videos are assuming that you're buying and playing these cards on curve. This means if I say Luxury Exploits is a far better card than House Marketplace for instance, I'm comparing the impact Luxury Exploits has when you pick it up in the first few turns to the impact House Marketplace has when you tend to pick that card up. With that out of the way, let's talk about our only card managing to make it into the A tier today, and that's Oathman. Personally, I find Oathman to be a really solid and consistent card, and there's even a few cases where it can spiral out of control. Giving 2 gold is my baseline for what a decent card looks like in the early game, so anything else is just extra, and we're getting a lot of extra here. The combo effect is great early on, and even if you haven't bought any cards to combo this with, it's not super rare to be drawing it with your Hlaalu starter card. When this does happen, the game can really start snowballing in your favor. But the best part about Oathman is the card is good without needing to land the combo at all. Being able to stay on the board and provide the 2 extra gold every turn is really threatening, and a lot of times in the early game, your opponent's hands literally can't kill this card. Overall, Oathman makes for a great pickup in the first 4 or 5 turns. In the best case scenarios, he can snowball your lead out of control. And when that's not happening, you still have a really solid consistent card that can always be sacrificed for 5 power. My favorite situation to buy Oathman is on turn 1 as player 2. If you have the 6 gold, this just gets your economy going so fast. Sadly, things aren't looking nearly as good for our unupgraded base version of the card, the Hireling, who ends up all the way down in C tier. The difference between 1 and 2 gold at the points that you'll be buying these cards is massive. Oathman is going to be letting you purchase cards like the Dreaming Cave or Plunder, even if the rest of your hand is just the 1 gold coins. Put Hireling in the same situation, and you're just handing out powerful cards to the enemy as you spend your turn using the treasury. If you're picking up Hireling, you really need to be landing the combo for this card to feel good. On the bright side, the combo is still strong when it does go off, and you still get the decent sacrifice value with Hireling. Overall though, I value consistent power above everything else, and while Oathman has it, the Hireling just doesn't. Alright, now for the first cards in our B tier, we have House Marketplace, as well as its upgrade, House Embassy. Now don't get me wrong, when you have 8 gold to spend, and the game isn't ending in the next few turns, you should probably be picking up these 2 cards. That being said, that situation is not exactly as common as you might think. 8 gold is the price where cards start to become a bit unapproachable without having some sort of exceptional gold generation going on in your deck. And while typically acquiring a card up to 7 would be a really strong combo, since we're playing this card so late, adding cards to your deck at that point isn't really doing you much. Despite generally being such a slow card, being able to sacrifice for 7 while giving you a bunch of gold to play with makes for a decent play in the later turns. Overall, I'd say Marketplace is a high B tier card that almost makes it higher on the list, but just plays out a little too slow compared to the S and A tier cards. Just to briefly cover the upgrade, you're getting 1 extra gold every time you play House Embassy, and in my opinion, this really shouldn't change when you buy this card or how you play it. It's a tiny bit better, but effectively they're the same card. Moving on to our next 2 B tier cards, coming in at 10 gold cost, we have the Kinsman, as well as its upgrade, the Consort. Now Kinsman usually plays out even slower than Marketplace, being tied for the most expensive card in the game, while not giving any gold on play. However, we are getting to acquire any card up to 9 this time, which means you can grab some of those huge game-winning cards like Onsei Assault or Banneret. Most of the time, I'm sacrificing Kinsman directly after I play it, as at that point in the game, 9 power is really impactful, and the game is likely not going to last long enough to reliably see this card twice. Once again, we're in the situation where if you have 10 gold to spend and the game's not about to end, by all means pick the card up. But usually by the time I'm able to buy Kinsman, I need to be directly converting my gold into power somehow. One benefit Kinsman has to speed things up a bit is that since it's an agent, you can actually use the St. Pelin patron power to get this card on top of your deck. This lets you guarantee that 9 power sacrifice on your next turn, which can be a pretty decent option. As for the upgrade, the Consular has 1 more point of health, and this is essentially meaningless as you should almost always be sacrificing these cards. And for our final cards making it into the B tier today, we have both contract actions. These cards are relatively straightforward, providing you free gold when you can proc the combo, and otherwise being pretty useless. However, let's talk about a few niche situations you might find yourself in concerning these cards. To start off, if you're using any cards that let you acquire a card from the board, you can acquire these, and even if you're not comboing them, they're going to give you some extra gold to play with in that turn. You can also buy these cards just to see what's underneath them, as you're only losing 1 gold total every time you buy one of these contract actions. I'd say the most frequent use case for these contract actions though, is only paying 1 gold to proc your other combos, such as Currency Exchange or Oathman. One unique situation I've seen a couple of times is on turn 1, if you happen to have your Hlaalu starter card, and 2 of these are sitting on the board, you can actually start off the game with over 10 gold if you buy both, usually giving you a free win. Overall, these contract actions are great if you can proc their combos, or if you can use them to proc other combos. One final thing to keep in mind with these contract actions is look for situations where you can deny your enemy landing the combo in their next turn. It only costs you 1 gold, but it can benefit them a lot more. Now moving down to the C tier, joining Hireling, we have Hostile Takeover. This is a really inconsistent card that can either give you a huge tempo lead or be a dead card in your hand. Personally, I try and limit the amount of RNG in my matches, so I don't like to pick up gambling cards like Hostile Takeover. That being said, if I realize I'm really far behind in a match, I'll end up picking this card up, hoping to catch back up by getting a lucky combo off on a big card. Just always be sure to sacrifice this card after having played it once or twice, as it's really not worth keeping around after that. And for our final card, we have Custom Seizure, which will be the only card staying in the D tier this time around. In some select situations, this card manages to just be okay, but most of the time, it's quite lackluster. Most of the really game-changing cards cost 6 or above, so unlike Hostile Takeover, you don't really have the potential to make any huge comebacks based off custom seizure. In fact, in a lot of cases, the board will have nothing that costs 5 or less, or at least nothing worthwhile. The main situation I recommend picking this card up is when you've bought a few power cards early on and ignored your treasury. This lets the card temporarily make up for the lack of gold gain you have while you fix your economy. Much like Hostile Takeover, however, I always sacrifice this card after 2 uses max, and usually just after 1 use. That's going to be it for my rankings on the Grandmaster Hlaalu cards. This deck has actually been my most used deck throughout my entire rank climb, and in general, I find the high gold gains to work extremely well with the sacrifice ability, allowing you to convert some of your gold to power nearly every turn in the late game. If you still have questions about any of the cards, or disagree with any of my placements, let me know in the comment section down below. I'll be trying to respond to each and every one of you. If you found the insight helpful, please leave a like, and subscribe to keep up to date with the rest of the tier list videos coming out soon. I'm super excited to continue making Tales of Tribute content, and please let me know if you have any ideas for videos you'd like to see. Until next time, and may the Divines bless your taverns with Turn 1 luxury exploits.